Welcome to VeteranGraves.com, where we're going to record every veteran grave in fine military detail. I created this website as a place where we can honor all of our military veterans, tell their stories in a way that no other site allows us to do. So let's get started in teaching you how to use this site. Now, you've seen pictures of what these stones look like yesterday. We have Malachi Brown here, United States Army, and we have Napoleon Merchant from the U.S. Army behind us. These two stones were in horrible condition yesterday. We got them cleaned up nicely. They're ready for Memorial Day. And the next step is to add these graves to VeteranGraves.com. Before we can add their graves, we have to add the cemetery. If you go register at VeteranGraves.com, become a volunteer, you can then add cemeteries in your local community. It's very simple to do. You just go to VeteranGraves.com, you log in, click on Add Cemetery, and then there's fields that are obviously easy to know what you're entering, such as cemetery name. This is Stuckey Memorial Cemetery. Location would be Mascot, Lake County, Florida. Street address, I'm going to see if I can find an address nearby that will correspond with this cemetery if there's not an actual address for the cemetery. And then we put the phone number. If you know a phone number for a contact person at the cemetery, which I found yesterday by calling a local funeral home who gave me the name of a church, Mount Olive Baptist Church. I called the Mount Olive Baptist Church number. The man who left a message provided his cell phone. I called his cell phone. He gave me permission to clean these veteran headstones, so I'm going to enter his name and phone number here. Veteran grave count, really important. Walk the cemetery, count the number of veteran graves, enter that number so that the next person visiting this cemetery on VeteranGraves.com will know immediately that there are 12 veterans buried in this cemetery. Then we have findagrave.com cemetery number. Is a fantastic website out there for registration of graves, and Billion Graves cemetery number. It's a way for people to easily navigate through various sources of information about the cemetery. And we have GPS coordinates, and we have a description where you can type why the cemetery exists. This happens to be an African American cemetery affiliated with Mount Olive Baptist Church. I'm going to learn more about it, and I can add that in the description. Okay, once you've added the cemetery to VeteranGraves.com, to add a grave, you're going to click Add a Grave, and it's first going to ask the cemetery. So you type in the cemetery name, drop-down menu will pop up, or the cemetery location, for example, Lake County, Florida, and it'll show you any cemeteries that have been added for Lake County, Florida. You'd click on Stuckey Memorial Cemetery in this case, and then the next step is to start entering information about the veteran. It starts out with rank. So we see that he's a private first class, PFC. Scroll down the drop-down menu, click on private first class, first name Malachi, last name Brown. Nickname, we don't know his nickname, but sometimes during your research you might find a nickname for the veteran, so you can enter that. Gender, male, because we don't just have male veterans, we have female veterans as well. Birthday, birth month, birth year, birth location, and some of that information you might know and maybe not. So as you do your research online and you find out more things about the veteran, you can add their birth location. Death, in this case, would be July 24th, 1994. Location, you can sometimes find an obituary online, for example, that would tell you maybe where Malachi Brown died. And then spouse name, if you happen to know who their spouse is, father's name and mother's name. And then click Save at the bottom. Very important that you push Save, because otherwise you're going to have to re-enter the information, so don't forget to push Save. And up on the top left-hand side, that's veteran. That's the 4 sections of information to enter. The first is just to get the veteran in there, and then you can edit that veteran's information by clicking on Grave Info. We start talking about, is there existing grave marker? In this case, yes. Sometimes no. Sometimes you'll find unmarked graves of veterans. In that case, we'll eventually need to order a headstone for them from the Veterans Affairs Department. VA issued grave marker, in this case, yes. Many veterans have private headstones. You can add all veterans, whether they have a government furnished headstone or a privately purchased headstone. And then findagrave.com memorial ID. So if they have a grave on Find a Grave, you can put the ID in there. And same with billiongraves.com. And as other sites are available, we'll add those as well, just again to make it easy to navigate for more information. Cemetery records, grave site description. Sometimes when you do research at the cemetery, maybe they have some records that would tell a little bit more about the grave site, so it's a text field. Orientation of grave, feet point which direction. Most of them you're going to find face east. It's a Christian way of burial. There are other religions that bury towards the east as well, but we can see this cross at the top here, and the sun is coming up to my right in the east. Grave marker visible, yes. Sometimes we have grave markers that are not visible. They've fallen over, or the ground level marker has sunk down. It's now covered in sand and sod. A religious symbol. We have a cross in this case. There's a drop-down menu for various religious symbols. Grave marker material. This is a marble headstone, white marble. Government furnished headstones are going to be either marble or gray granite. Some of the older ones are made of like a sandstone, limestone material, but the vast majority that you're going to see are these white marble monuments like we see in our national cemeteries. Grave marker type. This is an upright marble. We have ground level flat marble, flat granite. We have flat bronze markers. So that's where we tell the type of marker. And then the marker condition. In this case, the marker's in excellent shape. It was extremely neglected yesterday before we cleaned off the biological growth. Marker position. This marker is standing properly. It's plumb. It's the proper height. It's not leaning. But this is where you can tell, you know, what's going on with this stone. Eventually, when we get these all recorded with your help, we're going to be able to search this database and find all those veteran headstones that are in need of care. We'll be able to find all the stones that are leaning or sunken, and we'll be able to get out to those cemeteries with the proper equipment and training and personnel to get those stones set to where they look exactly like they do in our national cemeteries. And then the marker elevation, you'll see these stones sink straight down in the ground. I've seen them 6 or 8 inches remaining above ground. These are very heavy, close to 300 pounds. And with such a small footprint of square inches at the base, this weight pressing down, they just slide straight down in the ground without the proper foundation. Click Save at the bottom again to save all that information you just entered, and then go to the military section. In the military section, this is where we get down to really the fine military details of the service that this man provided for our country. We talk about, were they a military veteran? Yes. Were they a Confederate veteran? Yes or no. What branch of service were they in? Were they an officer or were they enlisted? Enlistment day, enlistment location. Like my grandfather enlisted in the Army for World War II at a place called Camp Blanding, which was a gigantic military base just west of Jacksonville, Florida. As you study these veterans that you're honoring and you find out these important details about their service, we've enabled you to enter all of that on veterangraves.com. We talk about what was their highest rank achieved, which military unit were they assigned to. We don't know that from this particular stone, but a lot of stones will show on the etchings the unit that they were a member of. And then did they have wartime service? Not all veterans are involved in wars, but if they are, we want to be able to know what wars they served in. In this case, we know it's World War II. Enter up to 3 different wars, because I've seen them where they'll say World War II, Korea, Vietnam. So it's important to know what wars were these veterans involved in so we can honor them. Battles fought. When you study the units, the military units for your veteran, and you find out which battles they happened to participate in, fought in, wounded in, this is where you can enter that information. Did they die in service? and how did they die. A lot of our veterans die of disease, accidents, training accidents. It's not always killed in action, but we also do have those who are killed in action. So that's where we talk about died in service. And then some are missing in action, some are wounded in action. Was this veteran a prisoner of war? Were they disabled? And then we have a text field of awards that they had earned. Click Save, and that takes you to the fourth section, which is Hero Story. This is just a text field where you can write as much information as you'd like to share about your veteran that you've discovered and learned. Maybe that's a family member of yours and you know some intimate details about what they did during their service. And sometimes it's what you learn on the internet or reading some books, interviewing family members. But this is where you can really talk about what your veteran did during their service to our country. I had someone online made a comment on one of my videos that I did of an airman who was killed in action over Germany during World War II. And she told the story of her father was also shot down over Germany during World War II. He survived, was taken prisoner by a farmer with a pitchfork and a dog. And he had one shoe on because he lost it when he jumped out of the plane. And those are details that are fascinating that we need to make sure we don't forget. So that's what this section is for. And remember to hit the save button. So that's pretty much as difficult as it is to honor our veteran heroes at veterangraves.com. Then we get into photos. We have the ability for you to upload specific photos we request, like front of the stone prior to cleaning, which we took yesterday, front of the stone after cleaning, which will show the contrast and how important it is to keep them clean, the back before cleaning, the back after cleaning. And then we want a panoramic so we can see what is the setting around this veteran grave. And then we have some extra types of photo upload fields that you can add. Maybe you have a photo of the veterans. This is, again, Veteran Graves, the place where we can honor our veterans and find military detail. I kind of compare it to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in Washington, D.C. It's one of the highest honors that we have in America to guard that tomb. Very selective process to go through. Not all of us can meet that high level of criteria necessary to become a guard at the Tomb of the Unknowns, but we could come out here and we can adopt a headstone and honor them and do our part of patriotism for America. I'm Trey Zipper. Register today at veterangraves.com. Get out into your local cemeteries, find these veteran headstones in need of care, and do your part to follow the protocol issued by the National Cemetery Administration on how to care for these stones. We're going to register every veteran grave at veterangraves.com, and then we're going to make sure that going forward in perpetuity, these graves are honored with the dignity and respect that a military veteran deserves. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being a part of veterangraves.com.